Are we already live? No.
No, not yet.
Yep, we're live.
There we are. Yay.
Okay.
Hi. Welcome to the Sisters Interview. I'm Shaxi. I'm a member of the Order of the Laurel in Ontier, and this is my sister Serifkin, Pelican and Lion of Ontier. And tonight we have His Royal Highness Vik Vikingsson, Laurel, Pelican, Knight, Duke, Crown Prince.
General badass.
Well, I get a Baron check mark too, Court Baron as well. So
yeah, because you were a landed baron for a while, right?
Yeah.
Hardest job in the SCA, apparently.
I mean certainly long, right? That's a long time. So yeah.
All right. Well, we usually start these with sort of your origin story, like how you found the SCA, when you found the SCA. So if you want to start at the beginning for us, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so I brought a few little sort of things here as well too. So when I was a kid, 17 years old, the local paper ran an article. This is it right here. So this is July 1987. And I saw that in the local paper. I'm 17 years old, and I gotta find this group, and it's the SCA out of the hometown where I was, Lloydminster, just because it's a little small little town. So I went through the article, and I found a name, Rob Mills, and I went through all the Rob Mills in the phone book and called them all until I found the one who knew what I was talking about when I said, "Hey, I'm calling about that medieval thing that I saw in the paper." So a lot of people hung up on me before I got to the real Rob Mills. And he said, "Yeah, I live in town. We're having a meeting tonight. Come on out." So I jumped in the car because we lived on a farm, drove into town and went to his townhouse. And I think there was 4 other new people there as well too that night. So I think the group had 4 members total. So yeah, and then I couldn't fight because I was only 17. So I just kind of stuck around, and we learned about making armor. And I have another article here as well that's from '88 that actually Albrecht von Rugen, His Grace Albrecht von Rugen, is in that paper as well. And I started fighting the month after, and I brought you a fun photo of me in armor for the first time. Can you see it? Yeah,
you're in the green.
So look at this sword I'm swinging. It looks like a giant Cupid, right? Like,
is that a thrusting tip?
Crazy how crappy the gear was. What's that?
Is that a thrusting tip on it? Like it's like this huge.
Yeah, the old school master monster size thrusting tip.
So Vic, do you have like a whole box full of like your memorabilia from when you first started? That is amazing.
Yeah, I'm not super organized. So I have a drawer that's just full of pictures, right? And it's right because that's how we started. That's what we did. So, and I'm lucky I have those actually. I'll tell you some funny stories when we get to the whole knighting part. But so the armor that I'm wearing is for a gentleman who is out of Cold Lake, which is an hour and a half north of us, and he was like 5'7". So I'm just duct taped into this with huge gaps. And the person that I'm fighting in those pictures is Rob Mills, Derek the Exile. And he's just trying to hit me in the head and hit me in the leg because I have no protection anywhere else. And we had to make our own armor. So the Borealis group, which is where I live currently right now, right, out of Edmonton, Alberta. So the Borealis group, they had a few people that knew how to make armor, and they sort of helped us out. They came out and did like an armoring day at the farm, and we just grabbed whatever scrap metal we could and started building things. So we were all Crusaders because Crusader helmets were all flat. There was no dishing, no sinking, no any of that. I think my first helmet was like completely round with a flat top, like a stovepipe with an eye slot in it. It was insane. It was crazy. We just didn't know what we were doing. We got bruises the size of like your thigh, and I mean, we had a lot of fun though. Yeah, and it was very rough and very raw at that time. I mean, nobody even really knew what the SCA was except for 2 people. So yeah, that would have been 88. I started fighting in 88.
So did you fall in love with it right away?
Yeah, I mean, I think I knew as a kid I'd always liked reading like King Arthur or Robin Hood and The Talisman by Sir Walter Scott. So I was kind of fascinated with that whole knights in shining armor thing as a kid. I think my parents would attest to that. And so as I'd seen the Markville Mercenary Militia in the States, I had seen articles in other publications, but they weren't around. The only real thing that was around was the SCA, and it only came to Lloyd in 87, right? It did existed in Calgary, Montagnard, and Borealis, but they were very small groups. They were baronies by 85, but yeah, I was into it right off the bat. I like fighting. Yeah.
In 88 was the Alberta groups, were they already part of Ontier?
Yeah, I think Mergenwood, somebody would have to correct me. I moved to Mergenwood in 90 and they were a part of Ontier, so they were just in that transition out of the middle into Ontier. Yeah, but certainly Edmonton and Calgary, Montgard and Borealis, they were the main groups in the area. And I think Borealis had cantons. So it counted the membership of like a very large geographical area in order to be a barony. Yeah. That was Conrad and Christiana were the Baron and Baroness when I started, and Ross and Laurel. And Ross and Laurel were the Baron and Baroness of Montgard. That was Albrecht's knight. He was squire to him. So there was a lot of people you saw time and time and time again, right? You couldn't really hide at that time, which is kind of scary because I was 18-year-old kid who didn't really care about history as much as I liked the sport of fighting. So I'm sure people were terrified at our whole group because we didn't really embrace the SCA ideal at that time. We just kind of wanted to go fight, and then I would take off my armor and put my circle back on and just walk around. I mean, we didn't know any better. We just wanted to have a good time, and we did, and we really did. Yeah.
How long, once you started fighting, how long did it take you to find someone to squire to?
So I had to write down a cheat sheet of dates. So I started in 88, and I think 1990 or 91 we went to Australia War. And so in the group of friends that I had, we had one person who was a really good fighter. That was Rourke, who later becomes Duke Rourke, right? And he was king of Ontier twice. So we were at Estrella, and there's this, and Gunnar was king, with his crazy spear and sword and running around. And we were at that time. Then I'd moved to Mergenwood, so I was living in a barony there, going to university, and so I'd become a little bit more, schooled on what the SCA was and how it worked. And I mean, I knew we had knights, and I knew we had kings and queens and all the pageantry. So, and we're at Estrella, and I'm watching our king run around just murdering people. But there's this little pencil neck guy running around, squire, real skinny, with a heater and a sword, and he's lightning fast, and he's just lighting people up. And I'd imagine it's like watching Legolas. He's just running around murdering people, and I'm like, who the hell is that? And my buddy, who's Gunnar Squire, right? Rourke was Gunnar Squire. He goes, that's the guy you're going to squire to. And I'm like, and that's Rourke saying that to me. And I'm like, Rourke, that doesn't make any sense. Rourke, he is a squire. A squire can't squire to a squire. That doesn't make any sense, Rourke. And Rourke's like, no, he's going to get knighted right away, Dick. And that's the guy that you need to squire to. And we didn't know anything. Like, we had no internet. We listened to what our friends kind of told us that we're in a higher position, that understood things. But I didn't know how squiring worked. I knew we had knights, but I didn't know how they were made. Like, this is just a different time. No internet, so you couldn't look things up. So I think Sven was knighted shortly after that. And then I had to write it down. I got squired in 93 because that's when Rourke got knighted in 93. So he got knighted. Sven went and grabbed his squire's belt, came back and squired me with it. So it was a pretty cool moment, actually.
Did you
I got a picture of it.
yourself to Sven at Estrella and say, "Hey, I'm going to be your squire"?
Yeah, and we talked. I wasn't that, all about it at that time. I was sort of, hey man, how's it going? I saw you fight, and it was pretty good kind of thing. I just kind of trying to establish a relationship. That's me getting my belt right there.
You guys both were,
and you can kind of see Rourke in between us. Yeah, I mean, I have aged horribly, but Sven still looks pretty close to the same. So yeah, so that would have been 93. Yeah, and then we had this. We've always had kind of an interesting, awkward relationship, right? I don't think sometimes our communication is a little bit off at times. So he knew that I wanted to be a squire. I kept going to crowns and trying to squire to the day for him, and it would always get messed up. So there's a memorable squire for the day where it must have been September, right? Because Squires was on the next day. And so I show up for Squires tournament and he's nowhere to be found. And I'm like, hey, Rourke, I'm looking for Sven. Have you seen him? Oh, he's gone. Oh, okay. So, because I used to be his MO, he would fight and then leave. And so I went to talk to Chorkill, and I do Chorkill, and I'm like, have you seen Sven? He's like, nah, Sven's not on site. And I said, oh, okay. I was hoping I'd square the day for him. And Chorkill's like, well, I'll square you for the day. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, great, awesome. I can at least fight. So 30 seconds before Squires tournament kicks off, who comes wandering out in his armor but Sven? And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I wanted to square you for the day. And I'm like, Chorkill told me you weren't here. And he's like, I'll kill that guy. So I'm like, look, I don't want to get involved. I'm like, I can't beat either one of you in a straight up fight with swords. So you guys settle it. It was just a very funny moment that I just remember. And then after that, we talked, and he was like, look, I'd really like to have you as squire. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to do that. Yeah. That's probably the best thing I ever did in the SCA. Really, like, people ask me all the time, what's your favorite moment? It must have been getting knighted. It must have been winning a crown. I'm like, man, I'd go back to Squire in a heartbeat. It was just, I really like the service-oriented aspects of the society, but Sven and I were such good friends, and I learned so much from him, and we both grew up. He's younger than me, which is kind of an oddball thing with knight squires, right? But we just kind of grew into it, and I mean, I'm not so much the fighting side of it. I've always kind of done things a little bit different. Our styles are similar, but just having a friend and who understands what you're going through and is able to speak for you is one thing, but having somebody in a game that we play like ours who never made me go, who never made me, like, when I watched him fight, I was just like, how is this possible? How do his arms move independently of each other, as I'm trying to, like, coordinate stepping and swinging? It's just, I was very lucky. And I see people now when they talk about squiring and they come to me and they say, I'm thinking about becoming this person's squire. I'm like, well, figure out what you want out of it and then make sure they can deliver it. Because I mean, my relationship with my knight was fantastic, like, just the best thing. And there were times when I was in that relationship where I would have said, like, just like, just all ragey about what was going on, but I was very lucky to have the knight that I had. So yeah.
So you guys had a knight squire relationship pretty much before the internet, right? I mean, so how did you guys do the long distance thing?
Badly. It was, I found it difficult, but not impossible. So, I mean, where we live, right, Avacal, you had to travel. We knew that coming out of the gate. So I'd been traveling to, the 28, 29 hours to Kingdom, not even really core, but, and like regularly anyway. And it was, I'm not trying to be mean to Sven, but I don't recall a lot of trips. He would come when he could. But the onus was on me to go to Crowns, to go to Cornet, and Fighting Champions, to showcase at Ursulmus in Seattle. And so that's what I did. The internet, like, I remember phone calls and discussing things, but even like long distance costs you money. And we were in university, and, you know, first job making $7.50 an hour. And so to give you an example, I guess, so my night wasn't at my nighting. Hold on a second. So my night wasn't at my nighting. And what happened was, I heard a rumor through Duke Rourke again, right? He was kind of our point of contact to the chivalry. And Albrecht had heard a rumor that somebody was going to get knighted at an event. And I called Sven and said, I don't know how this works. I don't know what to do. Do I just refuse it? If I refuse it, will I ever get offered it again? Like, are you going to be there? What's going on? He's like, I can try, but I don't really know. And he was dealing with a lot of, he can tell you the story himself, but he was dealing with a lot of personal stuff at that time too. So it just turned out that he couldn't make it. And he said to me, which in all honesty, now when I look back at it, the level of trust he granted me was impressive. He said, if they offer it to you, take it. Like, just take it, and we will do what we have to do when we meet, kind of thing. I hope he has the same story, because that's how I remember it. But yeah, I mean, we couldn't, I didn't understand what was happening. Now I would go, when the king offered, I'd be like, I want to take vigil, right? But we just didn't, I didn't understand it. And so I don't have a lot of SCA regrets. I mean, a script writer, you know, probably could have written a better script for me and how my SCA career has been. But I wish that I had him there to see it. I got knighted by Thorin. That's it, right? You can't really see it because the light's playing with it.
No, that's good.
But that's Thorin, and yeah. So
did he send up some regalia, or did he give you something later, or like, whose regalia did you get?
So I got my chain. I got a belt from I think it was Rourke's belt, and I got spurs. I definitely got spurs from Rourke. They were Rourke spurs, because he just went to a cowboy store, which are like, we got millions of them here on the prairies. He just went and bought a pair of spurs and said, here's your spurs. And I still have the spurs. The chain was just some cobbled together chain. The belt, I think, was Rourke's for the ceremony. But then Chorko gave me a belt that was just, I mean, this is the rattiest piece of leather I'd ever seen in my life, but it belonged to like Manfred Kriegschieber and Fast Eddie Zifram and Chorkill. Like, it was a legacy belt. And like 5 years later, somebody broke into Albrecht's truck and took all of our armor. And that belt was in my armor bag, which is unfortunate. But Sven, later on, I mean, gifted me with a belt that was a pretty amazing belt, with its lineage and you know what it meant to him. And I don't bring it out very often because I'm terrified that it'll get broken or something bad will happen to it. So I wear it once in a while. Plus, it was built for someone about this big around, and I'm like this big around. So
you have skills, though. You could make it work.
I did. I just put like a piece in it, and then when anyone says, what's with the belt extension, is that like a seatbelt thing on planes? I go, this belonged to Torgal and to Sven, so get lost.
Oh my God, you're the best. So you didn't get a vigil?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get a vigil. No, not for that period. Not for children.
Did you get like an after party?
Well, so to continue the story, so Sven wins crown, and I'm running around as a knight, and we're talking, and Skepti is kingdom champion, and I'm talking about the fact that I regret that my knight wasn't there, and Skepti's like, well, you can reaffirm your vows. And Sven's like, yeah, you totally do that. I'm the king. So we just did it. We just went out of the tent, around the corner. Now it's nighttime. I know Skepti was there because he's the champion, so he's got the sword. And I know Sven was there because he's the king. I don't remember anybody else being there, but there's a funny story. ask Albrecht the story about the buffet, and there's a whole funny story from when we got knighted. But Sven gave me another buffet when I reaffirmed my vows for him as king. So you can ask him about the weight of that blow. But yeah, so we got to kind of redo it, which I thought was really powerful and really kind of cool.
Did you hit him back?
It's not a bad. What's that?
Did you hit him back?
No.
Okay.
No. Once a squire, always a squire.
Okay.
Right? I know, I understand. But at the time, it just didn't seem to be the right thing to do. I mean, to strike the crown, come on.
Well, I know, but thought I'd ask. Oh. So you and Albert.
That's how that all played out.
You and Albert got knighted the same day?
Yeah, he got knighted before me, like 35 seconds before me. He's in one of the pictures, you can see him kneeling there. It's kind of cool. We kind of came up together, right? Like Sword Brothers idea. And I don't, that's another thing I've really lucky about, right? I've always had somebody there that I could bounce ideas off of. And we kind of came up together. This is me, like faster than him. But yeah, we came up together and it was really good. Like it was really good for me. I don't think I would be where I am today if I didn't have Sven as a knight, but Albrecht as a sword brother that I could talk to and work out stuff. And I mean, I mean, you've been there, like you're talking, thinking about fighting all the time, and you've got someone there that you can bounce it off of. It's fantastic to understand. So I do the same thing with almost everything, but it was just really good to have somebody there when I was fighting. Yeah.
So when I met you, it's like maybe 96, 97, you were in university for metalsmithing?
Yeah, I was probably at the Alberta College of Art and Design. So I'd have been living in Montgard. Yeah, going to the Alberta College of Art and Design. That was good. That was fun.
And did you do that because you wanted to learn to make SCA things, or what was that? What's that?
Yeah, you sound like my dad. Like, why are you going to art school? Which is cool. It's fine. But so I had the opportunity to go. That was the number one thing, right? I was working a job. I could get a student loan. I could keep I don't know if I should say this, but I could keep my job and still get a student loan and do it that way. And I wanted to learn. So a lot of people in Montgard at that time had gone to the Alberta College of Art and Design. Like Morgan the Unknown had gone, right? She's a Laurel. And Sir Ethel here had gone, famous kind of alumni. So I knew the school existed, and I'm always a fan of education and learning. I really like to learn new things. So I just kind of had the opportunity. I'm like, I'm gonna go. And I had already been, I had a bachelor's of education, so I could transfer a lot of the courses and not waste time with that. And I just literally got to go in and for 4 years focus on jewelry and metalsmithing, which is what I like to do. I didn't come out of it as a professional jeweler. That was never my intent. I tried to find jobs here or there, with professional jewelry studios, and they were like, we practically have to retrain you. So I always it was always a hobby. I mean, I've spent times where I would make things, but and then sell them kind of to pay rent or whatever. But I never wanted to make it a job. When I tried to make it a job, it kind of stopped being fun. I've always said that I can create something as soon as I rubber mold it, and now I'm making like 1,000 waxes. It just takes the soul right out of it. So that's not my thing. I can see you nodding in agreement, right? I'll do one, and then if maybe 2 more, and then I've completely lost interest in it. But I got started making stuff on the farm, did a lot of auto body work, knew how to form metal, and then was wanting to make armor. And then so I knew I was going to fight, so I made all my armor and fought. And then I was like, well, I want to decorate this armor, and that's kind of how the jewelry thing started. But ACAD was really like a break into another world where you could see, professional people. I'm not an artist. I don't style myself as an artist. Like, designing things drives me insane. But as a craftsman, that's where I think I would have occupied a good niche. Weird. My My screen just went all fritzy.
Yeah, because I am sure
Oh yeah, that's my helmet. Yeah.
picture.
Yeah. So that's my grad piece. One of my grad pieces.
That not the artist made.
Yeah. Well, so that's but that's just a copy, right? I didn't design that. I just said I want to build the Sutton Hoo helmet. It had to meet all these requirements for. We had to have a formed bowl, so that's the or something that was formed. So that's the top. It's just out of copper, so I could hack it out. I think we had a week and a half to build this. Right? It's got set stones in the eyebrows. It's got cast pieces. It's got hydraulically stamped plates because we had to use hydraulic. They used all of the sort of tricks and techniques that we learned. The best part about this helmet for me, it's actually still sitting upstairs. I still have it. Was we did the show, and my family all came because it's graduation, and my mom saw it, and she said, "I cannot believe," because I saw the first things that you made, right? These crappy stovepipe helmets with like grinder cut out eye slots that would slice your fingers up. And she said, just to think how far you've come, right? To see what you've done, it's impressive. So yeah, that's old too. That's got to be 96, 97. Yeah.
Did she cry a little bit?
Yeah, I'm always like, no, not then, right? It took a while for that stuff to sink in, I think. Now you look back on it and you're like, aw. But at the time, I was like, okay, let's go get another drink at the bar. These are free. Just kind of tooled off, right? I was busy in my own world. So, yeah.
So can I segue back to your knighting for a second? Because somebody asked a question and I actually have a follow-up question. One, whose buffet was harder, yours or Albrecht's? And then two, whose buffet was harder, Thorin's or Sven's?
That's a tough one. So I'd like to know who asked the question. But so what happened was we didn't know we were going to get knighted. So they called Albrecht out first, and he went up, and Thorin went through the whole thing and did the whole ceremony. And now it's time for the buffet. And Thorin had knighted Fiach like a month or 2 months earlier. And I don't know if you were there for that, but he Irish buffeted Fiach on the top of his head and made him all, So he didn't want to do that again. So when it came time for the buffet, he went back and he struck Albrecht on the shoulder. And I'm at the back and I'm like, yeah, like I know, like, but I'm terrified because I'm like, I don't want that. We've always said when it's time to get a buffet, we would like it in the face. And so I'm trying to think, like, how do I get the king who I can't talk to, right? How do I tell him that I want a buffet? And so when I come up, they do the whole ceremony. He goes, "Are you now prepared to receive the buffet?" Oh, yes, I am, Your Majesty. Like that. And he just like cracked me, and it was good. It was hard. Sven's was harder. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was what you wanted.
I would assume it. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, we can go back to art. But...
Well, did I answer both the questions?
Yeah.
I think you did.
Was harder.
Okay. Yeah. Probably because like my adrenaline was a lot higher when Thorin hit me, right? So, but I just remember Sven's being harder. And then I didn't get a buffet for Laurel, but I got one for Pelican, and it was Cedric that hit me. And so Cedric gets the honor of smacking the color out of my eyes because that was the hardest buffet. Because I was kneeling, I was on my knees, and he just kind of went forward and hit me. And then and that night I'm like, yeah, I really saw just like yellow for a while. I didn't have any color, and he's like, it didn't seem that hard. And then somebody sent him a picture where my face is all like, smushed over. Yeah, it's a great photo. And he's like, okay, maybe it was a little hard, but yeah, it's what it is. None of it bothers me. It's an interesting tradition.
So you got knighted, and then you got laureled, and then you got your Pelican. Is that the order?
Yeah. I have to look at the date. So knight was 96 for sure. Then I won Avacal's Principality in 96. I got laurel in 03, Baron in 05, Pelican in 08. That's the order. Yeah.
Okay.
So kind of an even kind of.
Let's talk about the whole principality thing, because you reigned 5 times as Prince of Avacal, right?
Yeah. What do you want to know about it?
I
You just want me to, I mean, it's
5 times is a lot. So I'm wondering, what did you like best about it?
sure. Okay. So it's definitely, in my opinion, a different job than being king. It's a lot more relaxed. That you have a safety net. I'm trying to think of who the crowns were when I think Skepti was. Maybe I know Thorin was for one of them. You know, I know Gnar was for one of them. I know Sven was for one of them. So why did I do that many? This is a really strong group here, and they're really, really good people. And I've never had a problem trying to be prince or king and kind of lead from the front with this group. I think they're amazing people to bring to the forefront and to try and help. And I get a charge out of the tournaments for sure, you know, and going in and saying, okay, how am I going to do today? What's going on? I like the competitive adrenaline part of it, even though it's counterintuitive to how I normally do things. But I get the same kind of questions about why would you win crown again? You're already a Duke. And it's, the answer is because I love this area and I love these people.
I want to be clear. Like I am not judging the 5. I just you have had a huge role in shaping what Avacal became. And so there must be some love there, right? Because, you know, after one in a principality, there's nothing else. I mean, you're not going to get another point on your hat or anything, right? And you made some fabulous women princess. I mean, you've done a lot up there, and I'm wondering, like, did you have things that you wanted to do to shape the principality?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think I ever went into a tournament that was to get it.
Oh, did we lose him?
You froze.
He froze.
Whoever I was fighting for and said, this is the plan. I would always go into the tournament. Always. I think you could ask any one of my consorts and say, I would tell them, we're going to enter the tournament, but we might not win. It's just my thing, right? So, but I always had a plan. I didn't have retinue picked out. I wasn't that, but I knew what I wanted to do and I knew how I wanted to help. And I always, like, Ludviga was really good the first crown that I won. She was the herald who read out the oath to the kingdom. And I've always taken that part very seriously. I'm not here to just win and then bide out my time, you know, and I'll get some free costumes and, you know, I get some servants to help me and I'll be first at the feast. You know, I've always looked at it as there's a job to be done here and I want to do it and I want to do it the best that I can. I think the first reign, I don't know how many events we had to do, 25, 26 events to go to, and we went to 27. Like we had 26 weekends and we went to 27 events. So because you never know, the first one.
Your first kingdom reign was like an insane schedule, insane. And something that's super impressive about you is you do really good court. You are very, very good at speaking from your heart and speaking eloquently and making people feel valued and cherished. And is that something that you feel like you worked on and you've gotten to a certain point, or is that just a skill you've always had?
You know, thank you, right, for that. It's not something that I spend a lot of time going over. I tend to look broader and say, did people stay? Okay, good job, team, and go from there. I don't know. I know that I've never separated my SCA character from me. Like some people talk about that, and I know I've never done that. And I know that I've always wanted to be honest and open with people no matter what we're talking about. So then in court, I didn't see a reason not to be like that. I certainly understand the politics of the SCA now, and I understand why people, you know, sometimes do the things that they do. That's fine. But when I was in a position of leadership, let's call it for lack of a better term, I didn't want anybody to hide anything from me, and I was always shooting straight with the people that I had to deal with. And I don't know if I worked on it. I think I was conscious of it because people kept pointing it out. Certainly fealty is a big thing for me as well too. Like I consider fealty to be one of the best things we can do in the society. But I just wanted to, I think that's the way my moral compass pointed, was to be that way and do that. And I mean, we've all seen people in the SCA who say one thing and do another. And I didn't want to be like that. A lot of the times when we talk about peerages and things like that, I say a lot of my peerage formation was, I saw what peers did and I said to myself, I don't want to be like that. I want to, and later on that morphed into other peers are going to do whatever they want. I just want to be the kind of peer that I would have wanted to meet when I was 18 years old. I mean, I would have hated the other side of that, where I meet the person who was me when they were 18, I'd be like, go away, like you bother me, right? So I don't know, I don't know how that would work, but yeah. So I don't know. I like court. You know, I like the ceremony that's involved in the SCA. Those are things to me, and they grew to be important. They weren't important at the start, but they became important to me. A lot of that was my night, and that people that I knew in the SCA and met and became friends with, you know, they participated at a level that said, this is serious when we need it to be serious, and fun when we need it to be fun, and court should be a blend of both. So
you talked about not even really knowing what the SCA was when you started out, and you went from that to being somebody who has a very intricate, well-developed understanding of the SCA. What do you think your most influential learning points were? Like, what was the best form of school for you? Does that make sense?
What was the best, sorry?
The best form of education for you learning about the SCA.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So bear with me. So I'm a big fan of SCA combat, of heavy fighting, we call it, right? And I've tried rapier, and I've shot bows and crossbows, and I've done a lot of other things in the SCA. But as I've answered previously, what hooked me was SCA fighting. So I'm a big fan of Musashi. I was big into kind of the ideas of Bushido, and that sort of led me into the ideals of chivalry. So I was in a karate club. I've been doing that since I was a little kid, like 10 or 11. And I quit doing that. I phased that out, is the way to say it, when I phased in the SCA. So I was a big fan of Musashi. And Musashi says, I think somebody's going to watch this and then be like emailing me like, Vic, you got it all wrong. That's fine. Like if I screw something up here, I want people to tell me. But I think it's his fire book where he talks about big and small, fire scroll, right? He says, whatever you can apply at a small level, you can apply at a big level. And I always thought, man, I mean, I get it. Like I get the concept of it, but I don't get it. So I set off on this path in the SCA to learn how to fight. And I made these ridiculous mistakes all the way along. Like I did such dumb stuff, you know, and when I fought, right? I would reach out to hit someone, and the person I was fighting would just bonk me on the head. And then I would walk off, and my friends would be like, what is wrong with you? Like I was not a natural talent in any way, shape, or form. I had to learn and progress. But the SCA, when we fought, these people that were around me, they let me learn, right? Now, obviously, some of them were more annoying about it, but they let me learn. And that's the small microsphere of the fighting community. You can screw up a million times, right? And you're not actually dead. You get to pick yourself up, go back over, and then come back and try it again, right? So I applied that little idea to the SCA. The SCA's greatest strength, I've always felt, is that you can make a mistake and people let you learn from it. They'll correct you, but they let you learn. They don't cut you off. They don't. They want They want that inclusiveness is the word that we're using now. They want that. The game was founded on that. That's the big. So in a game whose core element is two people beating the stuffing out of each other, sweating in the sun, right? And sometimes getting angry or getting upset or making mistakes. That's the core of the SCA. That's what it was founded on to me, that tournament. And out of that came this idea that everyone's welcome because everyone can fight, right? Everyone's welcome. There's no age groups, there's no weight category, but you can make mistakes and we'll teach you along the way and you'll slowly become better. And that, for me, that's the school that I belong to. And I think right now, with what's happening in the society and the way we're looking at the diversity and equity and inclusive part of the SCA, I think we need to remember that we all, everyone that plays, has a duty to let someone make, I don't know if it's duty, but, you know, has the ability to let someone make a mistake, talk to them about that mistake, and then hopefully have educated them so they can work that mistake out of their system. Now, if we were talking about purely fighting, that's the one thing that I had to fix, was to understand that when you fight, you're working against your personality, right? I really do believe that it's a battle against yourself. That if I approach the fight the same way every time, I'll lose, right? So that's, I know one of your favorite questions, Rifkin, is when you were preparing for Crown, what did you change? How did you train? I didn't change a lot of how I fought stylistically, but I worked very hard in understanding the mental aspect of our game, and I worked really hard in letting myself win. So the kind of the mental preparation part of it was pretty key. But I think that allowing myself to lose and not feel bad about it is one of the key things that help with that too. So I know there's a lot of changes happening in the SCA, and there's certainly a lot of discussion. I just find for myself personally that when I see people, somebody does something clumsy, says something clumsy, they immediately cut them, hard and then push aside. And I think those are teachable moments, and I think we should use them for that. And it's difficult to do, but in fighting, if you're willing to go with the ebb and flow, and be able to adjust and adapt, even if your personality says, let's go right in there right now fast, and this person made a mistake and we got to weed that out and get rid of it. If that's what your personality says, but you can get your mind to say, yeah, but maybe we can teach this person and get them to be a valuable part of our community. It's kind of controlling your person, right? And that works both in fighting and in the SCA. That's kind of how I look at it. So.
Yeah, I like that analogy a lot because it's right. It's about extending grace, and it's about allowing people to grow, and to as you learn, you do better, right? And we need to allow people that space and that grace to get where they need to go, and we can't condemn them every time they make a mistake. I think that's a great analogy.
And that's the whole point. I mean, all three of us are here as peers because we made mistakes and people let us recover and learn and go on. And if we lose that in the society, then I don't know if I would want to be a part of it.
Well,
because I grew up in the SCA.
Yeah, and I want to say I still make mistakes, like pure or not. We're all human. None of us are perfect, and we all make mistakes. And as long as you can own up to your mistake, and people give you the grace to grow, then we're all better for it. And if somebody can do that for me, then I can do it for them.
Yeah, this is a Shakshi's cup that she made for me a long time ago. Everyone. No, I agree. And it's a weird thing is, so with fighting, we don't tend to talk about the mental aspect of it as much as we talk about the physical and how to, the mechanics of it. And so in the SCA, we talk about concepts, you know, and that this is where we want the society to grow, but we don't really talk about these little important things like, you know, giving people the chance to recover and learn. So I think it's pretty important. Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of my greatest sort of school, is that whatever worked for me fighting, I try to apply it to, you know, the greater SCA and see if it would work. And then ironically take that and apply it to my life outside the SCA and see if that would work. And it was just a good way to grow up for me. Right?
Well,
and I think at the core of that, your contribution personally to that is that you remain teachable and you remain on a quest for self-improvement and for opportunities to grow and learn. And I think that that's for me, if we're looking at somebody as a candidate for a peerage, that's a really key quality. You know, maybe they've, you know, had horrible mistakes and done really embarrassing stuff, but that was 10 years ago. And look at how much they've grown and look at how much opportunity they've taken to better themselves. So
yeah, it's tough. It's tough internally to make those changes and to allow people, to allow yourself to admit that people have changed. I think I find it somewhat easy because I've allowed myself that. So I can say, okay, well, you know, I did it. So a little, maybe they can, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, the peerage idea, the idea of always being on a quest. I mean, that's Arthurian, right? That's what it is all about. It does never end. And it doesn't matter what peerage you're in, right? You can be the greatest fighter in the world and go and fight someone brand new and they hit you and you're like, oh, that's not supposed to happen, but it did happen. You know, there's growth there. When you make something, I mean, how many times have you been making something that's almost done and you're in the last 10 minutes of construction and you're rushing it to get it done, and that's where you make your mistake. There's always room for growth in everything that we do.
I mean, that's I think one of the key parts of our game is you know, continually striving to be knightly, whatever period you are. I'm just going to say knightly instead of like purely, and that requires growth all the time. I think so. Yeah.
Well, and when you think about the idea of what's our end game is how I would say it. Like, what are we leaving for everyone else? Like, none of us are bigger than the SCA. It's its own thing. But where are we taking it? What's the point, right? Is the point just that I take every marrow of enjoyment that I can suck out of this game and then discard it, you know, and that's it? Or do I want to be the kind of person in the SCA who is contributing to the fabric that is, you know, the current Middle Ages? And I'd rather be that person. I've looked at some people in the SCA and watched them fight and just been amazed. I am not a Super Duke. I'm not. I can get the job done when I have to, but I don't train like a Super Duke. I have Super Duke moments that last for a third of a second, and then I'm back on my questing path. But I've looked at what they've applied to fighting and only fighting and said, it's kind of a shame that they couldn't bleed 10% of that off into these other parts of the SCA, and because it would really help. That's not to say that when I look at Super Dukes, I'm like, oh, it sucks that they're not doing good things in the SCA. I just have always kind of looked at it as fighting is one aspect of a very large picture. There's my analogy again. And so I wanted to pay attention to the large picture. And that might lead us back to the question of, you know, why are you going to be king again? Because I want to contribute, and it's a fun way to contribute.
So I have to tell you, I would ask the question if you didn't go to be king of Avacal, because I just think, like if I think of Avacal, I think of you, and you know, it would surprise me if you didn't go for it. So congratulations. When you guys
Thank you.
finally get a date for your step up, I totally want to be there.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So I wasn't going to ask
Very
that
much.
question why I
So,
did.
well, yeah, and that's fair. And I'll be honest with you and the 4 other people that are probably watching me tonight. I have wanted this my whole entire life. So one of the things that we didn't touch on in that whole, Vic's little journey from peasant to, squire, is that the people that started me in the SCA, Rob Mills, Derek the Exile, especially, they would talk about the area that we lived in, and they would talk about becoming a region. And they would say, we can become a region, and then we can become a principality, and then one day we could become our own kingdom. And that just blew me away. Like, I was like, oh my God, that'd be so cool, right? Just think about how cool it would be to be king of this dump. Because that's how I was when I was a kid, right? And so as I matured, I'm like, no, this is a really, really, really good thing. And I would tell people that flat out when I was prince. Don't lose sight of the fact that one day, if we were smart and caretakers of the game and do it correctly, that we could be, a kingdom. And the first crown tournament was so much fun to watch and so hard to watch. Like, I don't know if I even can explain it correctly. I was glad I was there, but it was very difficult to sit, because that's all I've wanted to do ever since we became a kingdom was to fight in that tournament. I didn't even care if I won. I just want to be a part of it. I always want to be a part of what's going on here. And now I'm like, just sit down, Vikingsson. Like, just go sit down. Nobody wants to hear just go sit down and relax. So I try and inject a little bit here or there, but I like watching other people. I can't swear here, but I like watching people fumble around and mess it up.
You can.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
So I just
like watching people fumble around and make mistakes. So
somebody said Vic call. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I don't know if I would push it that far. I mean, we've covered and we've disclaimer that nobody's bigger than the game, right? And I've really enjoyed the game that I've got to play out here, and it's because of the people that live here. Honestly. And when we were part of Ontier, Ontier made us great because we had to be, right? We were far, far away. So every time we went to Ontier, it was just like this big party bus rolls in, and we just had to be, a part of it. We had to go out and get it. And I have fantastic friends that I see once a year, and I'm so glad that they're in my life, and it's because of the SCA. It's really amazing. And I know we've had this conversation. We gained a lot when we left, but we lost a lot when we left, and so did Ontier.
Yeah.
And and that's okay. But there are times when I look back on it and I'm like, oh man, like, it's a change. And it didn't hit me until we ended fealty when Sabric was king, and they called all the peers up, and I went up because I was a peer, and we're all kneeling, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're taking back our fealty, and I was just like, that's when I knew that yeah, exactly. As much of a game as it is, that really, right? And I'm like, ugh. So maybe I'm just winning crowns to fill the void now that Ontier is gone. Maybe that's what I'm doing.
If that was true, I think you would have fought in Crown and Eldemir, and you didn't.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. I was in Eldemir for 4 years in that kingdom, and they remind me a lot of Abaca. And people have asked me why did you not fight when you were there? And it's because I didn't really get enough time to know the people that well and know their customs. I had great people that I met there and friends that I met there. One of my squires moved out there, and he's a knight there now, Sir Gan. And so I would have had support, and there were, a lot of good people there that would be worth putting, choosing as consort and putting beside you. I just didn't feel that I knew that kingdom enough that well to do it, and I didn't want to do a half-assed job of it. So I just kind of was like, no, I'll get my time. And I think one of the things that I've learned, but it might be the only one thing, is that if I force things, they rarely don't turn out the way that I want. But if I just calm down and let things come to me in fighting and in life, right, that it usually turns out better. So I didn't really get an opportunity to do it, and I didn't force it, and that's okay. That's fine. I'll never be like Havorth with like 6 different crowns from 8 different kingdoms, but that's okay.
We still love you.
Thank God, right? Thank God.
So let's talk. I want to talk about your art some more because I have some pictures, but I also want to cover your squires because you have quite the, I don't want to say stable of squires, but that sounds a little sexual.
It's an army.
An army of squires who have been knighted. Like you've been a very very successful teacher mentor. And how do you feel like your training methodology helped that? Or
Yeah, I feel that I treated my squires the way my knight treated me. I didn't work a lot with them on their technique necessarily. This is how you throw a pump fake. This is how you throw an, you know. I worked with them on the game. Some of them a lot on the game. I've had 4 squires who've been knighted. So Stein, Einar, Fenric, and Gan have all been knighted. And they all fight remarkably different. So we didn't spend a lot of time. I didn't try and modify what they did. I've always said when it comes to knights and squires that I'm a tree pruner, not a tree planter. So I'm going to nip this off. I don't like that. This is good. I'll encourage this to grow. And there I got my little bonsai bush that goes off and gets knighted. That's perfect for me. I didn't, and that's the relationship that I had with my knight. He flat out said, I'm not going to teach you how to fight. You're doing really good. So I'm going to work on the other things, and that's what we did, right? And he did it kind of the same way, I believe. He opened the door by winning crowns and bringing me on board and saying, let's go to this event. You're on my retinue, right? Or now you're my squire. Come with me to this. Come with me to that. Let's go see this. The more things that you travel and see, the broader your picture. And I learned a lot that way. I try to do that with my squires as well. And then I have 4 squires still, some who play and some that don't. They all play to their own level, and I'm okay with that. Yeah.
What's
want
next?
to talk about art?
Sure.
Okay.
You gonna put some pictures
Sure.
up?
Sure. Let me put all up the picture.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Let's go to this one.
Yeah. I still make those cups. The darker colored cup with the sort of faces on the around the rim. It's a recent one. The horn, the cup is still here. It's just all battered and beat, but I still use that cup that's in that picture. So yeah, and then the cup with the lion on it, that's Sven's device. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite things is mixing dark and light right together. So to get that really strong contrast, all these pieces come out of sort of the Norse art that we see, where they're like the taplow horns, the Sutton Hoo horn. Certainly, that's what that horn tip is. The taplow is the cup. The idea of having a matrix, a die, and then you stamp the metal into it, so it's really really fast. The cup, for me, it's on the top right, the one with the lion. That's sort of mixing some older techniques like the plates with like a modern idea of having a cup, not a drinking horn. So
That's cool.
yeah, that's what's there.
So was your laurel for metalwork?
Yeah. So we did this is an aside, we did a laurel meet and greet, and there were, I think, 8 or 9 laurels there, and half of them said the same thing. I'm a laurel, was made a laurel in whatever the date, and I don't specifically know what for. And I was like, okay, like fine. But for me, it was always very, I like jewelry and metalwork. That's what I did. So that's what, yeah. So those are purse lids that we were doing. These pretty much, I saw one that Torgel had made, do Torgel. And which is ironic because, you know, Torgal, Dak, Sven, me, Torgal, who is Thorfinn Squire 2? You remember?
Skeggy.
Yeah, so it's the same line, right? Torgal, Skeggy, Thorfinn. Anyway, I've seen purse lids that Torgal had made, so this is kind of my homage / copy of his idea. The artwork is period, but the actual idea of a pouch or purse like that isn't. But I like making these. These were fun, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why you know, what specifically I was laureled for.
Oh, really?
I asked
Yeah.
at one point, and I said, well, was it because I did this? And she's like, no, we didn't even talk about that. And so I was like, I had no idea then.
Yeah, and I'm so self-conscious about everything. I would have tracked the crown down and been like, why did you make me a laurel? What was it for? But I think I knew. So that's a scroll. That's Sir William's knighting scroll, the shield, and the shield rim. So that's kind of off the Vendel culture stuff. We whipped that up pretty fast. That was like, I think like 2 days. Oh yeah, and that's your scroll at the bottom. Yeah, I just did the etching. Inga did a lot of the work on that too.
Yeah, that's
And then the sword. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's Arminius's scroll.
Yeah, yeah, that was a cool idea though. I didn't research that one as much. I just sort of helped out with it. The idea was already planted in my head in sort of what they wanted to create. So I just helped with the etching. Yeah, the sword, that's Duncan, right? That's his sword. That's Grendel made the blade, this crazy like monster sized blade. So it's a 1.5 hand Viking sword was what he wanted. And I've never done anything that big, but yeah, so I just based it off of examples that I could find and then made it bigger for that blade. So
yeah. Did you do the woodwork?
All this stuff, I don't think there's, yeah, all of it. I just kind of fumble my way through it as best I can. And yeah, so I've done jewelry and metalsmithing. I mean, I would turn, obviously, done a little bit of carving and horn, but my big thing is metal, working with metal, right? Casting and doing that.
So did you have a vigil for your laurel?
No.
No.
In fact, no, I didn't. So the only one I had a vigil for was Pelican. So Cedric called me up in court and offered, and it must have been July coronation, I think, offered and said, so we are minded to put you on vigil or something like that. And I said to him, no, it's okay, we can just do it. And he said, no, Sven threatened to kill me if he wasn't here. So you're going on vigil. So I'm like, okay. So yeah, I had vigil for Pelican, but not for Laurel or for
He wanted to be there for your Pelican, but the knighting was.
I would not have said it like that. If he's watching, just remember that it was Rifkin that said that, not me. But I was glad.
Sorry, Your Grace.
I was glad. Yeah.
You can blame it on me. I'll take the heat.
Somebody had to say it.
Yeah,
actually, there's a really cool picture of the two of you that I'm going to pull up because I love it.
Oh yeah, I'm wearing the same outfit. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so that would be the first crown, and that's Sven, and that's his knight Dak. Yeah, that's great. So I made Sven's circlet in that picture, and I'm pretty sure Torgal made Dak's circlet, and so I'm not sure if he's handing me the orb or if it's the toast or what's going on, but it's the part not to your ceremony where, like he's handing something over. Yeah, that's a great picture. I cannot express, like how great it was to be king and have someone there that you could talk to who's done it, right? Who understood it. I would have been petrified. And then of course, being prince is like it's not an insult. It feels like a warm up for that, right? You're familiar with court. You understand the peerages, even if you're not in them. You've had all this experience, and it just made being king a little bit easier, I believe, for sure. Oh, and then that outfit that Sven's wearing, I made that helmet. He has one and I have one. I don't know what event that is, but yeah,
Okay, I
Those
suck
things are
because
crazy to wear.
I suck because I thought that was you.
Oh yeah. So
This is purple and yellow.
it's
Okay.
I'll tell him you said that. That's good. Yeah, it's not bad to be but yeah, I have an outfit just like that. So no worries. That was when everybody was doing the whole crazy. And so that would be my first crown. Yeah. There's another one where somebody caught me winking at the camera, which is an epic picture too, but I didn't expect to win. I don't know if it shows in that picture. That's Albrecht's head too, just slightly, and then Antonio, of course, underneath me.
I just love the look of pure joy.
It was, yeah, it was an amazing thing. Like I'd never thought that I would win one. I knew I was confident, and I knew I could, and I knew that I'd been working on it, and I thought I had a really good chance. And then you win, and you're dropping your stuff off, like trying to get your sword off, trying to get your shield off, trying to get your helmet off, and people are running up and saying congratulations, and everyone's happy. And I remember when they picked me up, I grabbed Albrecht to pull him along because he didn't get out there quick enough to get underneath me. So I think my left hand, I think I've got a hold of him, pulling him along because I want my best friend in these pictures. And I remember this feeling like washing over me of absolute relief, like an exhale of absolute relief, and then an inhale of just absolute joy. I mean, I was so glad that I had done it because it meant that I had reached what we consider to be one of our, pinnacle moments in the SCA in terms of fighting, right? And I felt in a way that it verified what my knight thought of me and what he thought I was capable of. And then as I was, and then just the awesomeness of leading that kingdom and yeah, I honestly had never thought that I would win an on-tier crown. And I was lucky enough to win 2 of them, so I'll take it. And then of course there's other moments. That's me being grumpy in this same outfit with Aisha after we'd won crown in Avacal. So obviously a little less thrilled in that picture. Yeah, I was probably pretty tired. So
All right.
Loud.
But yeah, and then that's pretty much how I look when I fight, right? This kind of purple and yellow. That's always been my thing. So
where does that stem from? The purple and yellow.
Weird. So yeah, I was a Crusader persona, and I was Caldwell William was the name that I used when I first started in the SCA. So I was hanging out with a group of people in Edmonton, and they were all going Viking, like Norse household. They didn't know anything about Norse stuff. They just thought Viking stuff was cool. Well, they're like, we're all Vikings. You should get a Viking name. And I'm like, okay, we could do that. And then we went to Clinton War, and in a real hazy moment, like at 2:30 in the morning, I'm like, I'm going to be Vic the Viking, right? So that's where it came from. And I thought I'll just take Viking, pick the first part of it, Vic the Viking, it all works. Because we weren't thinking more than 10 minutes ahead in our SCA sort of world. And so they all had a very specific way that they were dressing. They were wearing padded gamizons with the pickle barrel breastplates, and then the helmets with the oculars, exactly like what I have now. So that was cool back then. That was the cool thing to have. This little group of 4 or 5 guys that fought together that were really good fighters. That's how they dressed. So I'm still I'm 18, 19. I'm still at home on the farm, and I need to make one of these gamizons. So I get my mom, we go to Fabricland. I'm like, I need your help sewing because I can't sew. We got to make something. She's like, what color do you want it? I'm like, one of them's red, one of them's blue, one of them's black, one of them's gray, one of them's green. So there's not a lot of colors really left. And we walked past a bolt of that purple, that not red purple, but blue purple. And I'm like, that's what I want. And then she's like, okay. So we buy like 4 meters of that. And then I need some pants, Ma. I gotta have pants. You can't be cool in the SCA without pants. When I fight, I gotta have pants. That's what everybody wears. But she's like, okay, what about it could have been purple and and green, right? That was the first kind of color combo. And I'm like, no. And she's like, what about yellow? And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. It's bright. But little did I know, now that I look at it, my high school colors were purple and yellow. The Minnesota Vikings were purple and yellow. But at the time, I'd never even thought of that. It was just a color combo, so I wouldn't match the rest of this motley crew of non-medieval Vikings that were rolling around in the SCA. And that's just kind of where it came from. And then that became more of a thing than my heraldry, because I never really settled on a heraldic coat of arms until I won, won't tell anyone, but until I won crown. So purple and yellow was just always kind of a color combo that I was associated with, especially in my own area. That's kind of where it came from. And then now that, if you look back at that picture, my arms is just a purple background with a gold chain and a gold lion. And luckily we got that passed. That's Duke Sven's Lowenbrow lion, and the chain, he always had that chain as a border. So I adopted that just in case somebody had a purple shield with the yellow. I think we actually tried to pass purple shield, yellow lion, and it didn't pass. So we needed a difference. I don't know what the heraldic term is. So
Point
with
of
the
difference.
chain and it passed. Yes, point of difference. Always learning. So yeah, that's the story. Not much to it, but now it's funny because, you know, Minnesota and their football team, and of course my high school, and when you look back on it, it was pretty fortuitous. So.
What do you want? So, where are we?
I personally love when people take their heraldry and they make it mesh in with their lineage. So I love that you did that. I think it's a really great way to honor your knight.
Yeah, I mean, if you look right here over my shoulder, that's the King's Favor that they gave us, right? When they stepped down, when Sven and Signy stepped down, I found that. And then the Inspirational Equality banner, that's certainly interesting. We were on the throne when that was the big push, right? For that. And that's funny when I look at that banner, because I didn't, honestly, if I'm being completely truthful, I didn't really understand it at the time. I mean, for some people, it was this big breaking issue. And for me, I was like, okay. And they were, I cannot remember who gave me that banner. It's sad that I don't. But they were like, this is a really important thing, and we'd like it if you would fly this as the crown. And I'm like, hell yeah, that's no problem. So, you know, and here we are talking again about equity and inclusion and bringing people in, and I think it's a good thing. So.
Let's see. Do you have open lists in your kingdom? That's on the list. I'm just gonna go to the list.
Yeah, no, we don't. We don't. We don't. It's. I don't know if we ever will. I think that open list leads to the potential of getting a crown who maybe doesn't understand the conventions of the kingdom that they're ruling. And is that bad? Maybe not necessarily. But right now, there's enough people here, even though our lists aren't huge, like on tier huge, 118 people or so. There's enough people here that want to do the job and deserve to do the job that I don't see it ever being that way. Do we know how many kingdoms do? I know the West has an open list. Are there other kingdoms? Because I fought in a West crown.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Ontier technically does, but you have to have permission.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But you guys don't have to like submit in a letter of intent, or there aren't requirements, right?
No, and there's a lot of myths around that in other kingdoms too. I know here the royalty will say we want everyone to have a banner, so everybody shows up with a banner, makes reasonable intent, that sort of thing. Yeah.
When you lived
but
in,
there's no like there's no like we want to see your financial wherewithal before you fight and things like that, right? All those rumors. So.
Everybody knows you have a ton of pinball machines that you can hawk, so it's all good.
Yeah, I do. I have a lot of stuff.
No, but
I'm like a little kid though. I like.
When you were in Eldemir, did they have letters of intent and requirements?
They had requirements. I don't think. I mean, somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember it being that you had to submit a letter of intent every time. But I seem to remember that Crowns were saying, we want a letter of intent. Yeah, and it has to be at this date. Now, whether that's their Crown doing that or whether that's their tradition, that part I honestly couldn't answer. Yeah, but I remember my squire that night going, oh, I got a Crown's coming up and I got to get all this stuff ready and make my armor look spiffy. And I'm like, just win 2 and then you never have to worry about this ever again. Like a jerk, right? Like, because I have, and yeah.
It's easy to say when you've already done it.
Yes, of course, right? That's the best time to rub someone's nose in it, when you firmly established it for yourself, right?
How big are Avacal crown tourneys on average?
35, 30, 35. Yeah, honestly, I think if you looked at how much as Ontier dropped from like 115 to like 85, that's what we are. That's us. So, yeah, the fun part with the Eldemir thing is we were talking and somebody asked me, how big was your crown list? I'm like, pretty sure the first one was 112 and the second one was 98. And that just ended the conversation. I don't know where it was supposed to go, but the person went and then walked away. And I was like, okay, because they have roughly 25, 20. Right. So we're a little bit bigger. We have 35, but it's any kingdom, the top 15% is really, really good. So it doesn't matter. You're going to get 1 or 2 people that really push you could go either way. So.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I mean, for the population of Avacal, 15 or 35 is actually a pretty representative list.
Yeah, I think that, yeah. And I mean, I would imagine eventually it may drop. I don't really know. Right now, it seems to be fairly steady at like from 30 to that's my take on it. I mean, maybe the Seneschal right now is hammering me out an email that I'm.
You guys are full of crap.
That's fine. Well, it's like fishing, right? I mean, how big was my tournament? It's like 55, 70 people, so yeah. I think, I don't even remember the rounds, because you're just doing one round at a time in Crown. You're just, who's next? And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, you're in the finals. Who do you want to talk for you? You haven't asked, sorry, but one of the key questions that I get asked about it too is, what was your training for Avacal's Crown? How did it differ? What did you do? And I feel bad. Griffin I News got a hold of me right after a tournament. And they were like, so you were training really hard for this one? And I'm like, not really. Nope. And he didn't want to hear that, poor Skell. But I wanted to see what I was capable of in that state, right? I'm not insulting anyone when I say this. It was a hard tournament for me to win. But at the same time, I'm on the backside of my career. I've had major surgery and that I won't recover from. That's always going to affect the way that I fight. I still consider myself fairly fast, but I'm not like I used to be. My, wind isn't what it used to be. I like Rocky and like his last final movie. I shouldn't even be fighting in the ring. I should be coaching someone to do it. And I wanted to see, coming back in, what could I accomplish? But I would have quit fighting if the community that exists in Borealis hadn't been the way that it was. There were a lot of people asking me to come back out. Are you coming to practice? And not in a negative, like, are you coming to practice because I want to kick your old man butt? But in like we really miss you, genuinely want you out. I was kind of like, so they really helped a lot. So I've been to fight practice and, and then I just get a lot of luck and a lot of things go my way and here we are. So
no, I'm gonna stop you there because I think that's a bunch of crap. I think you have like a seriously good foundation. You've been fighting since you were 17, right? So that's like 30 years. Yeah. Then you did all of that mental work before you won Ontier Crown. And by the way, I'm reading Mind Gym again and it's resonating. And
I was gonna bring it and show people. Yeah, it's a great book. Yeah.
Actually, I bought it on Audible so that I can listen to it when I'm driving to fight practice or, whatever. And I just find that it's better for me when I listen to it. But so what I'm trying to say is that, you were at Kelwyn's Knighting with me and we fought in that little tournament. And even then,
right.
I know you hadn't been fighting a lot. I mean, you're still kicking ass. And that's because you have that 30-year foundation and you figured out your mental game and you know how to get yourself where you want to be. So I'm not buying all the luck shit.
But and good. I mean, because you're correct. And I would say that anybody that ever asked me what should I be doing, I just started fighting. I'm like, fight, 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 fight. Like nobody looks at, that's the hard part with anything, with art as well too, right? Nobody sees. That's why I told the story about my mom. Nobody sees the shit that you created at the start. Nobody sees the picture of me with the Q-tip sword where the guy I'm fighting, he's been fighting for 5 months and he's hitting me at will. Nobody sees that we fought. Sometimes we fought every day. In the winter, we pushed the couch against the TV so we didn't smash the TV, and we'd fight in the living room and leave duct tape marks on the ceiling when we threw sky wraps and stuff. Nobody sees that, right? And I know my knight would tell me that all the time, right? Like he practiced that short, tight snap until he, it pounded a dent in the tree. Like you've got to put in the 10,000, 100,000, million shots. You've got to put that time in. And then once you're there, somebody said that in one of the online videos that Thorfinn was in, and there were a few other people that I didn't really know. But one guy said, like, once you got the foundation built, then it takes less time to get back into that. But you really hit the nail on the head when you said the turning point for me was getting that mental game together. And it came out of that book, Mind Gym. I was watching, so I grew up in a small town on a farm, and 15 minutes away from where we farmed, where I grew up, that's where Braden Holtby was born. And Braden Holtby is the goalie for the Washington Capitals, right? And he has a Stanley Cup ring, so he's fairly successful, I would say. And he was on TV talking about his mental coach, and he mentioned that book, and I wrote it down and went out and bought it. And that idea of letting yourself win, that was just like somebody cracked open my head and poured sunshine in there. Like you can do this. I have a very a tendency to let other people have their day, and it doesn't bother me. I enjoy other people having a good time and having fun. I've enjoyed everyone that's ever won Crown, but the idea was that it wasn't bad to let yourself do that as well. Completely changed my approach to everything in fighting and everything in the SCA. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to win. It's okay to do the best that you can. It's not a crime. And I don't know why, but I had to learn that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I would have never guessed that about you because you were so successful at the principality level. I mean, I think somebody told me a story once, like, at the last minute you would like put your shield in or something, and people would be like, "Oh, it's fixed fighting." And so you would come to Crown, and then you told me, like, I think we talked about it a while ago about how you felt like you didn't, not that you didn't deserve to win, but that other people would do so good too, so it wasn't. And
and then you didn't fit, right? And wow. So I don't know if I can explain it correctly, but the people that I saw, I was gonna say we, because I'm pretty sure my knight felt the same way, because we've talked about it. But the people that we saw were like, they were like gods. I mean, they were just like, wow. I mean, the kings that I saw fought like demons. The queens that I saw were amazing and graceful and friendly. I mean, we would see them after, they would come into our post level where we would be like, it was a frat house. I mean, it was an SCA frat house, and they would be right into it. But I mean, when the game was on, when the spotlight was on them, they were amazing, and just the way they carried themselves. The heavies that I saw that were kings, the way that they fought and acted, like a pride of lions, and the queens were just amazingly graceful. I couldn't even talk to the queens. I mean, I did not have any kind of common ground. Like, what are we going to talk about? I'm here to talk to the king, and I was just going to talk to the king. And so in that kind of crucible, I just didn't see myself at that level for a long time. I was starstruck with the idea of winning Crown. And it's weird to be on the other side of that. Not that I'm comparing myself to the gods and goddesses of Ontier from early Ontier, but it's just weird to be. Somebody called me Avacal Steingram, and I'm like, I'm not accomplished, but I'm accomplished. I'm going.
But
when I thought about it after a little while, just because of the idea that I'd won crown both in Ontier and in Avacal, right? Making that connection. And I'm sure there's a lot, like I've seen a lot of Steinger's armor, and he is definitely an armor. So I'd like to think that that was their comparison. Because Steinger's a lot older than me, so I hope that wasn't their point.
Well, he does metal work too, right?
Yeah, yes.
And he had a huge hand in shaping Ontier. So I mean, I think that is actually a pretty good analogy.
But it's hard to have that handed to you, and I don't react well to that or gracefully to that. So I need a minute to like take it, break it down, and then go, oh, okay, this is, you know, it's weird to be on the other side of that. I think I'm better at it now that I'm, you know, like in my 50s, and just I'm able to look back and say, yeah, okay, that I have this history. But while I was building that and putting that together, I just wasn't even thinking about it. I was just doing it. And so it's different to be on the other side of the fence. I don't know what people think, and I hardly don't want to know, but I'm glad that I have had a hand in this kingdom for, you know, 32 years. Yeah, that's really good. Thanks for calling me on my bullshit.
You can always count on us for that.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be painful the next time we meet in armor, but I'm up for it.
Yeah. Well, so now the fun part is, you know, we'll go to tournaments, and whereas in the early days, I would try and have to put my mental game together and say, okay, I've been running, I've been lifting weights, I've been training, I've been, you know, I practice, I'm kicking ass, I warmed up with Sven, there's nobody faster, I can block 93% of his stuff. There's nobody can hit me faster than that. This is where, you know, I would need to do that in my head to go there. Now it's already established. Now everyone else is doing that. They're like, oh, I have to fight Vic. This is great. He's been king, like, you know, twice, and, you know, Prince 5 times. And I had a discussion with a newly minted knight about that very same thing. And he was like, how do you get into that headspace? And I'm like, this is how I did it. Just because you're not there yet, this is what I recommend you do. Because eventually you're at the other side where you're like, well, if I lose, are people laughing at me? If people, like, I remember the first tournament I lost when I was a Duke, right? And I was just like, what are people like, who the hell is this guy? Like, what the hell is going on, right? You have to let yourself make mistakes and learn from them and grow. And yeah, it's just not something I never thought about. So
I know we talked about this a little bit before we went live, but somebody's actually asking, and it's a good question. How is COVID quarantine affecting your plans to reign? Are you coming up with some elaborate costumes now that you have like months to sew?
Yeah, that is not what is happening with the costume, on the costume side. So in all honesty, we had planned to come in, and our message was, I think our interpretation was that people are a little bit burned out. And so we were gonna kind of circle a little bit and get everybody kind of looking inward to a kingdom and saying, okay, let's get new people involved in these activities, and maybe even officers, and let's get our kingdom back playing the way it used to, where everybody is civil, everybody kind of participates and kind of move in that direction. And now that COVID has hit, people are just frothing at the mouth to go to an event. Nobody's burned out anymore, as far as I can tell. They're going to be at every event because they're starved for it. So now we're looking at the push that is here with the DEI, with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and kind of moving in that direction, and seeing if we can help with that or assist with that. And some of that is changing some of our laws and doing things in that direction, and tightening up maybe our grievance procedure, like just, you know, those type of law type of things. So we weren't gonna do a real super elaborate court because we didn't want to make 60,000 people build 60,000 things, kind of. So it's changed a bit. I was laughing because if there's no, I mean, with all this time, we nothing's changed for us. We're gonna put our stuff together. We'll be building it a month before. You know, that's just, I'm sorry, but that's how it is. So, yeah. Unless that's somebody that asked that question that wants to make garb, and then in which case have them identify me. So.
You heard it here. I saw some of the stuff Morgan is making for you guys. That's really sweet stuff. So you're getting taken care of.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people helping us. Yeah, and there's a lot of people that are involved. And in all honesty, I can pull back from it a little bit too, because it's Aisha's first time, and so I'm just reveling in her enjoyment and her excitement, and you know, it's like it's brand new, you know, and that's the same with new people in the SCA, right? You get new people around you, and they have this energy, and they're excited, and you just kind of you just feed it off of that a little bit, and so that's where I am with it. I'm there's some parts of it that still make me extremely nervous, and there's certainly the attitude like I want to do the best job that I can, but I also understand that I can't please everybody, and that it's going to be what it is. I'm a big believer in the Norse idea of the Norns weaving your cloth, you know, and then it's all laid out. You just have to pull the skein, pull the thread. So it's going to be what it's going to be. COVID hasn't really changed a lot. It's just delayed it. So, and honestly, if I'm being 100% honest, I think COVID's harder on the king and queen than it is on the prince and princess, because they are still the party line, and they still have to go out and do it. I just have to follow their lead. So we've been trying to support them as much as we can as well.
Yeah, they've had some tough decisions to make.
Yeah, and there'll be more, you know, and it's just the nature of the game that we play. It's the way it is right now, and we need to all kind of pitch in and make sure that we're making the best game that we can.
So, Shaxi, do you have some more questions you want to ask, or should I like do that final 10 that I do with all the Dukes and wrap it up?
Let's see. I'm not ready to have this end yet.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, right? Like, I don't really talk a lot about this stuff all the time, so it's nice to kind of cement it in my mind and go through it. Yeah.
So, Vic, you said that there are certain things that make you nervous. I've worked pretty closely with you on a reign, and I've never perceived you as being nervous about anything when you're reigning.
So is the question, what makes me nervous?
Yeah, I guess.
So it's that whole duck thing, right? Where you're just on surface, you're calm, but you're doing 1,000,000 miles an hour with your feet. Right now, if I'm being 100% honest, there's a lot of emphasis on words, right? The words that we use, and I am learning as I go with a lot of this, a lot of the newer concepts in the SCA. So somebody will hammer out an acronym on Facebook, and I'm like, I gotta Google that. You know, what the heck does that mean? Like XEY? I don't understand what that is. And I worry a lot about using the wrong word in the wrong context. Not in like a super negative way, but just in like, I always think like I struggle with communicating and getting ideas across, as does everyone, right? I mean, we all do. But I really think there are times where it's crucial to get the idea to people in a way that keeps them engaged. And I worry a lot about maybe dropping that through word choice or through misunderstanding. That's certainly a big one. There's a lot of trust that goes on with our crowns, right? In making peers, in selecting barons and baronesses, in dealing with the populace. There's a lot of points where you have to just say, like for peers, for instance, right? You just have to say, okay, I've listened to the peer council. I've listened to your advice. I honestly don't know 100%, but I'm going to go with what you want. That happened more in Ontier because it was such a huge kingdom. Like here in Avacal, I know most of the people, and so it's an easier job. I don't think that's going to be that tough, but certainly the confidence. So certainly the trust of the people that you have to represent is a very important thing. And I worry about dropping the ball with that one. A lot of people don't know. So we won September Crown, was the first crown I won. And so you win, they pick you up, they walk you around, they drop you off, you do court, you get your hats, you sit down, they do court, you go, you pack your tent, you leave. And that was September Crown. And I remember just like I talked about that whole kind of energy flow that went over me, or the way that I felt when they picked me up and carried me around, and the way that I felt. But when we got into the tent and we were supposed to pack up, I remember crying. And I remember looking at my partner at that time and saying, I'm not upset. I just need to get this emotion out of me, like just to drain this fluid kind of. And I said, but I got to be honest with you. I said, the number one thing I'm worried about is doing a bad job. And I mean, I know I said we're not gonna, but that was like the number one thing at that time. Was it was a monumental task that we were undertaking because we'd never done it. And it was amazing how people are there to support you and help you. That's one thing that I'm glad I understand by being a crown in a kingdom. I understand how people will come together and help you. I also understand how people, when you lose a crown, will walk up and go, oh, I was really hoping for you. And they want it to be uplifting. But for me, it was just like a pebble of weight that I was just like, oh my God, I let all these people down. But I can flip that, right? And yeah.
I'm familiar with that feeling.
Yeah, I think everyone is, right? I think that's the common denominator, is these little lessons that we learn. They're the same for everyone. It might happen in a different field, but you know, and you have to get out of your own way. Stop being your own worst enemy, right? Just let people be happy for you and you be happy for you. And it sounds so simple, but it for me, it was one of the hardest things to do. And I remember the end of first reign, I remember saying in the tournament, oh, it's tournament. Yeah, we were dressing the combatants. And I said, it's going to be one of the hardest things you do, not to win this tournament, but to take on this huge debt of obligation that you owe to people, because you're going to be crowned and you're going to need them. And they'll be there for you, but you will just be like a broke down, humbled mess at the end of it, because there's no way in hell you could ever pay that back. And it's a tough thing that you don't think about at the time.
So I want to go back to that Mind Gym book for a second, because it's not just about on the field mind, mental toughness. It's about, I mean, really you can apply those lessons to everyday life. And the thing that I always come back to when I feel like a loser, when people are like, oh, I'm so sad you didn't win. I was like, well, I can't control the feedback, but I can control how I react to it, right? So you're always in control of you. And so it's only pressure if you let it be pressure, right? And I think
yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I think once
and then that's my first, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like my first crown, that's what it was.
Right.
You want to expand on that?
No, I was just going to say, because you care so much about doing a good job, that's you accepting pressure on yourself, and it's all internal, right? So like you don't even need anyone else's pressure, because you have this sense of duty and this moral compass that is always going to be harder on you than anybody could possibly be.
That moral compass, that's Sir Timothy. I heard Sir Timothy say that in a ship council, and I never heard that concept before, and I use it all the time. Yeah, but the idea that pressure that you're under, you use it to feed what you're doing, not to erode what you're doing, right? And use it to push you to do better, rather than, it took me a while to flip that script, for sure. You ask a lot of people, I think in your interviews, about, did you win your first crown finals or not? And I never did. First crown finals I was in. So this is another moment where I just wanted to fire my script writer, because if this would have happened, it would have been perfect. But Sven and Signe were king and queen, and I was in the finals against Amalric, and I lost. And that's okay. But I would have liked to have had my knight put the crown on my head for the first time. I think I missed an opportunity there. And I felt personally, I'd never been in the finals. And that when you talk about that pressure had forced me to be a different kind of person, to hurry up things, to speed things up, to try and force speed, to try and, like, when my thrusting tip came off, I should have just stopped and said, hold on a minute, let me fix that. Let me, against that type of opponent with the style that he fights, I should have just stopped that. And I didn't. I took away one of my primary offensive weapons when blowing off into the crowd. And I never really reset. I was just like, nah, I'll just carry on. And I let that part of my personality sort of slip aside, and it just came unraveled. But I needed that, right? I needed that to happen for me. That was not a negative. I took those lessons back. And then so the next crown final that I'm in, I put my helmet on and the chin strap just let go, just completely let go. And I'm like, son of a, I'm glad they didn't start it, because the rules of the list, did they not say that if your helmet breaks in a fight, it's an automatic loss? So I said, hold on, pop my helmet off. And then it's almost the same feeling hit me, where I was like, started to feel like I have to just get this going. I'm holding everybody up. My opponent's waiting. These things are messed up. And I remember, I don't know why, just because of the mental training we were working on, I'm like, no, man, this is your time. Like, just no one cares. Like, go send your squire. He'll run 100 miles to give you the little nut that you need to fix this stuff. And so I sent him, and he ran away, and we fixed it anyway. And when he came back, I was like, we don't need you. And it worked out. And I mean, just even that difference, right, was that's what I needed. I needed that, if it makes sense.
Yeah, that was your final with Einar, right?
No, with Matthias.
Didn't your final with Einar though have like something of the same thing, and you were just so cool about it? You took your time.
Yeah, I don't. The first one was Matthias, where my helmet broke and we ran and fixed it. I think the second finals with Einar was good, because I now had that mental base of stability where I was like, I've been here before. If I win, good for him, or good for me. But if I lose, this is my squire who's now a knight, he'll be fine. And it's coming back home regardless. I think for a lot of people, that finals was, people said it was amazing to see two people fight who just trusted each other, who just, I tipped him a couple of times, and he didn't even pause. He was just like, nope. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And we just kept right on fighting. And a lot of people were like, wow, that was crazy, because we knew each other. There was already a relationship there of trust. So it just played out in our fighting. Yeah.
So
that was a long time ago.
Ancient.
How long ago?
I'm looking at the reigning questions, Misty. Do you have a favorite memory from being king, and what is it?
A favorite memory from being king. So we were at how much time do we got? Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So okay, all right. So I'm king. And there's I have a lot of really good memories as king. I mean, at Estrella as king, when the first time when all of my friends were gung-ho, and we were like this huge, army, which is really tiny at Estrella, but you feel huge because there's more than 40 Ontarians clumped together with swords, and just the dumb stuff that we did and the funny stories. And I mean, it's amazing. But so we're at Estrella, and I bought my knight a gift to give him, to tell him thank you. Because I'd always, as an artist, tried to make him stuff, and it would always be shitty. It would break, or it wasn't what I wanted, or I'd have to rush it. I like their circlets, don't get me wrong. I'm always glad that I made their circlets, because they pop up in all these on-tier pictures. So I have a little bit of continuity there. But so I went and bought him a gift, and it was at night, and there was like a fire burning, and I think he was going to bed, and I was going to bed. Everybody was just kind of done with the whole night. And I said, hey, I wanted to give you this, because I knew you wouldn't buy it for yourself. And I said, I just wanted to say thank you. I wanted to tell you, thanks for everything that you've done. It was amazing to be your squire. And I said, I don't tell a lot of people this, but I said, like, I always felt like winning crown was a validation of the trust you had put in me in my fighting skills and my ability. So I think I said, you're one of my heroes. If I didn't, I should have, because he always has been. And I said, so I want to say thank you. So I give him this gift. And that he looks at me and he says, I don't think you understand anything about our relationship at all. And I'm like, what? And he says, you're my hero, man. He says, you're my hero. You've done more in the SCA than I've ever done. You're a triple peer. You've won crown. You've done everything in the game, sort of a few little things. He said, you're one of the people that I look up to, and I am so glad that we're friends, and I am so lucky to have you as a squire. And I'm like, you bastard. Like, I don't think I've ever had my SCA sort of, experiences broken down like that before ever. And so we hugged, right? I'm pretty sure we were both crying, but we just hugged, and I was like, that was the best moment for me personally. Yeah, that was really a good SCA moment. I wanted to touch on another one. So King the first time, very like oath ceremony, they stand up, they put the cloaks on you, like James Brown style, and you spin around, and they're like, Vic and Inga, King and Queen of Antir for the first one. And everybody's long live the king and long live the queen. And and I turned around and I looked at the crowd, and you know how you kind of do when you're in front, you just kind of phase everybody out, but you'll catch one person. And when you focus in, and I'm kind of phasing out and just looking over the crowd so that everybody thinks that I'm making contact. And what I focus on, and there's Derek the Exile and his wife, September. And that's the guy who got me into the SCA. And he's right in the middle, and I had no idea he was going to be there. And he's the first person that I looked at when I had a crown on my head. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing here in my head, right? And then I spend the rest of the day trying to get to talk to him. And I get like 2 minutes of, I didn't know you were coming. And he's like, I wouldn't have missed this for the world. I mean, to tell people that I used to beat up the king is amazing. And yeah, and then I think like 2 years later he was dead, and I didn't really get a chance to talk to him anymore. So that was, for me, was a very amazing moment, and cemented that fact that people care, right? People care about what you do. It does matter, right? You might not think it does. You might just think you're bouncing along in your own story and everything's fine, and I can do this because no one really people care, and they're looking out. They're looking out for you, and they're helping you. And yeah, that was a pretty good moment too.
So I'm just gonna say, you reflect what you put out, and it's because you care so deeply about Antir and Avacal, and your students and your mentors, and just the populace in general, that you get that reflected back to you. I think you're a pretty amazing person, and I don't think you quite realize it.
Yeah.
I don't want to push it on anyone. Let's just go have a good time.
Serving on your retinue was one of the pinnacle SCA experiences for me. You lifted me up in more ways than I can say. So
that's very cool.
Oh no, the Edmondson sisters are crying.
Yeah, I was always glad to have you there, right? And I know we did a lot of things that were difficult, and talked about a lot of stuff, and I know that we each probably both walked away going, am I overloading this person with like, but I was always glad that you had a retinue the second time. And that was a very, like, both reigns were challenging in different ways. And I was glad I got to know you better and glad you were a part of that. So we could talk about it whenever we wanted to. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. You're definitely one of the people that is in my mind and in my heart when I say I have a debt of gratitude that I won't ever be able to repay. So thank you. It's good.
And I have a debt of gratitude to you as well. So it's mutual. So just know that. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Final 10.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I feel like it's a bad transition.
I don't know how to transition out of that.
I think it's funny because when I'm looking at the screen, I'm like, I'm here, Rifkin's there, and then Ashakshi's here. So I'm like looking down at Ashakshi whenever I talk. But it's okay. It works.
Sure. Let's go to the final 10. All right. So if you could fight anyone in the world, who would it be?
I'd fight Derek the Exile again just so I could have time to tell that guy thank you for everything that you did for me to get me the SCA. It's been like the greatest thing I've ever done with my life, and thank you for that. And then I just kick 10 kinds of living stuffing out of that guy to show him how crappy he actually is at a fight.
Who would you like to see reign in your kingdom?
Tough one. There's so many people here that have the ability and the desire that I don't know if I can pick one. I certainly would slot myself in maybe for another one if I get time. So yeah, maybe I'll say me, just to me.
I like that answer.
Weave that thread in there.
Sure.
You got to believe in yourself, right?
I'm not making it. Yeah, I'm not making it any easier on myself though, for sure. So.
If you could talk fighting, with anyone in the world for an hour, who would it be?
Yeah, I'd like to talk to, like non-SCA. I think it'd be interesting to talk to Musashi. I mean, there's a definite mindset there when you're fighting with 3-foot-long razor blades, versus, oh, you hit me in the head, but I can get back up and go to work the next day. I've always had good conversations with, certainly with Duchan, right? In terms of fighting, although we don't have that many. But in all honesty, if I just got to sit down and talk straight up stick fighting, if it's an analysis of what I'm doing or getting help, I'd go back to Albrecht, and just talk with him. It's always a fairly laid back, but it's always pretty precise. He understands a lot of what I do wrong, and I understand a lot of what he's telling me. So I would talk with Albrecht.
What is your favorite medieval-esque or period movie?
So my favorite is probably Cyrano de Bergerac with Gerard Depardieu. It's a little bit right on the edge, right? It's Musketeers, so 17th century, but it's French, so it's subtitled, but the costumes are fantastic, and it's really well laid out. And I've always liked that character, that sort of selflessness combined with panache that makes sort of him very intriguing. I quite like that movie. I'm a big fan of Ridley Scott's The Duelist as well, because every cutscene is just like a painting. I mean, that's one of Ridley Scott's first movies. I don't know if it's period for us, but that'd be second, and then probably Kingdom of Heaven / Troy / Gladiator / Knight's Tale for the rest, for sure.
Nice. If you could add a rule to the rules of the list, what would it be?
I don't know if I'd add it to the rules of the list, but I'm a big fan of shield conventions. Just because I feel they make our game kind of equal across it's tough. I mean, in a game where there's no physical height, size requirements, I think it's interesting to try and have a rule that sort of evens it out. I certainly understand why people like that rule and don't like that rule. I don't know if I'd make it like a legit rule, but I've always thought shield regs, the whole idea of shoulder to shoulder, chin to crotch, or a variation within those measurements was a good idea to kind of keep us all on the same level.
It certainly makes it more fun to watch. It's more dynamic.
All right. Yeah, it definitely is difficult with the historical side of it, so I understand that part too. But if it was just me and I rule the world, then I'd be like, let's try this for a couple of years and see where it goes.
What is your favorite tournament format?
Yeah, it's got to be double elim, the traditional on-tier crown double elimination tournament. I mean, I'm not in good enough shape to win the whole meat grinder kind of, tourney format. So I want one fight rest, one fight rest, one fight rest, and then I got to win 2 fights. Okay, I'll try. That certainly speaks to me, especially now, at this point in my career. So yeah, I like it. But I like the fact that if you make a mistake, there's another life available. And then when you get in the finals, everything's wiped clean and you have 2 lives, do what you will. I've seen some crowns where he's got 1 loss, but you've got no losses. So you're in the final. He's only got 1 life left. You have 2 left. Off you go to fight in the finals. So I've always been a fan of they just wipe the slate clean and you go to the finals.
What's your favorite event?
We have an event here that's called Quad War, which gets the nod for my favorite event right now. It's not, it's not an Estrella, it's not a Penzik, it's not a, but it's everybody goes to it. It's like our Estrella, and it's on a site. It's continuously on the same site. The site owners have worked to upgrade this site. It's in Marsden, which is 45 minutes from where I grew up, on the farm where I grew up, and just the fact that everybody local goes to it. And it's so low key and it's so laid back and it's so much fun. And I mean, that's my favorite event for sure.
If you could have any helmet, regardless of cost, what kind would it be?
What kind? I'm working on a samurai helmet right now, but instead of like building it all myself, I've taken one that I bought and I'm just modifying it to fit. I definitely want to get a suit of samurai armor done, so I'm working on that. But sky's the limit. I can get whatever I want, huh? I would probably get someone to make me a helmet that has somebody already made one. I saw it online where it's Arnold Schwarzenegger's face and then Conan's circlet, and then there's a wig, so he's got like the long Conan hair. So it really just looks like Conan the Cimmerian walking around. So I don't know why, but that appeals to me. And then maybe I'll get some like big foamy muscle suit so that I'm armored underneath, but it looks like I'm completely jacked. And then I'll just run around in like a loincloth. And then maybe I'll even get like a stocking and put like an orange in the head of it and just kind of have it hanging up and just run around the field like a madman. So yeah, so that's the helmet that I want, which leads into this weird scenario of me running around looking like I'm naked or half naked. Yeah, it'd be fun.
Nice visual. Thank you.
Yeah, just taking you where you really didn't want to go, right?
It's in all our heads now.
All right.
Mine too.
It's Saturday.
That'd be a sweet. I guess a sweet helmet. A sweet helmet.
I'm gonna have to go Google it now.
I'm actually making a hat right now that's got the Conan snakes.
Oh,
on
the
it.
snakes?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, ask me about Estrella.
She's gonna go get it. Okay. It's Saturday morning at Estrella, and several people want to talk to you about last night. What did you do?
Okay, so if it's 20 years ago, I'm not at Estrella. Somebody went around Estrella and used my name. And so everybody wants to talk to me because they think I did a bunch of bad stuff. But if it's modern Estrella and people want to talk to me, it's probably because they just want to know what I want for breakfast. It's pretty laid back now. Oh, that's wicked. And is that one of the pointed felt hats?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's for
the
the
Stelios?
No, it's for the Crown Princess of Atenbelt.
Nice.
I'm
That's
surprised,
awesome.
but she knows now.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, my bad. I mean, maybe he's not watching.
All right. Who is your favorite fight ever?
Duke, Sven, Folger, Gunnarsson. That's an easy one. that it's got everything that I like and hate in it all at once. You know, it's got an opponent who's not going to shake any of my shots off. It's someone that I trust. It's someone that is fast. It's someone who's like shield work is really good. It's someone who fights with the same kind of style that I fight. So there's no weird unorthodox stuff. You just got to worry about the speed and the skill. And then it's got that little bit of bitterness in the knight squire relationship that's going to come out with just that little extra sting, you know, and zip to it. There's a funny story about Sven and I at the end of a war where he was in that phase where he would show up, fight, and then leave. So we fought all day in the war. I can't even remember the event, but then we went and we fought right at the base of like a hill, and everybody was kind of sitting on the hill, and we just beat the stuffing out of each other for probably 25 minutes. Very, very painful fights where nobody got hit, where they were armored, you know, and it was nuts, and it was fast and hard, and then he just packed up his armor and it's okay, see you later, and he left. And then I went back in and was asking people, hey, do you want to fight? And people were like, no, I think I'm done, you know, I don't really. And then that night I was talking to somebody and they said, I don't think you have any idea how savagely you two guys has beat the stuffing out of each other at the bottom of this hill. And your friends, like your friends, it's obvious you care about each other, but you're just wailing away on each other like you want to actually kill each other for real. Nobody else wants that, so they were just like, no, thank you. Yeah, that's who I would fight.
Nice. All right, and then the bonus question is, who is the cleanest fighter in your kingdom?
Oh, there's lots. So in our kingdom right now, I don't really know if anybody stands out. I just know that when I fight the people that I grew up with, you know, like His Grace Albrecht, or you know, Sir Eric, or you know, Sir Fenric. That's my crew. So I always know I'm going to get good, clean fights out of them. Yeah, no worries.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for spending a long time with us tonight. It was so good to catch up with you and hear your story and hear how deeply you care. I just really appreciate you being so honest with us. So,
and vulnerable. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, thank you both for doing it. It went by like that quick for me. I like to talk about myself most of all, so no worries. Good luck with the rest of your interviews. I think it's a really good thing, and I'm fascinated by it. I'm trying to keep up with them and all the rest of the video stuff that's going on. So thank you for inviting me to participate in it. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for agreeing to do it, and thank you all for joining us. I think next week we're talking to Duke Thorin, who should be very, very interesting too. He's had a huge hand in shaping Ontir, and he's a personal hero of mine. So that should be super cool too.
Yeah, me too.
That's good.
Thanks,
all right,
everyone.
good luck. I'll watch that one for sure.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.